I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today we're up here in beautiful Byron Bay in New South Wales to drive the brand new Mark 6 Volkswagen Polo GTI. Now, the Polo GTI, Volkswagen's second smallest performance car, is a tradition that goes back to the Mark 3 Polo GTI in 1995. And back then, 23 years ago, it was a diminutive 1.6 litre car producing 88 kilowatts. However, as the decades have rolled by, the Polo GTI has become more and more serious, culminating in this Mark 6 version of the GTI, which now steps up to Volkswagen's EA888 2-litre turbo petrol engine, and it actually now produces the same power that the Mark 5 Golf GTI did, 147 kilowatts or 200 PS. However, the Polo has substantially more torque. There's 320 Newton meters in this vehicle going to the front wheels through a 6-speed DSG only. Sadly, for now, there's no manual offered on a car that would work very, very well with one. Now, like the broader Polo range that the GTI is based on, it looks more mature, it's more refined as a whole, but the subtle additions that you get on the GTI, I think, really lift this vehicle above its peers. There is, of course, the red stripe that connects into the headlights, red GTI badging front and back, the subtle changes to the grille and the lower diffuser, and this particular vehicle is upgraded to the luxury package with the 18-inch Brescia wheels. As standard, there's 17-inch wheels with the Milton Keynes design familiar from the Golf GTI. Now, as usual, I'm going to take you for a detailed look at the Polo GTI, starting in the car, front and back, and then we'll take this new hot hatch out onto the road. Like the rest of the Polo range, the new GTI has really grown up with what is the most mature and refined cabin in the small car segment. However, getting the GTI really gives it a visual lift because you get this really nice red trim piece that runs the breadth of the dashboard and down here around the gear selector. That's in common with the new Polo Beats, which you can also find out about on Chasing Cars, but I think it certainly looks good and it matches nicely with decent materials up here, lots of soft touch materials in your line of sight. However, it does get a little bit scratchier further down. Naturally, the other big GTI addition is this lovely steering wheel, really nice red stitching. It feels great in the hand, just the right amount of chunkiness, I think. The other thing is that the Polo introduces a number of segment firsts, including an active info display second generation. So Volkswagen have taken a few more cues from the Audi virtual cockpit version of this system, like the ability to display a full map, which looks really immersive, and I find it's a good safety feature, having your road projected directly in front of you. Looking further across the dashboard, there's a standard 8-inch touchscreen on every Polo, not just the GTI. However, you do have to option up navigation. That's surprisingly not standard, nor is the active info display. But when you get the package including nav and the digital driver screen, you also get a really powerful Beats stereo, which is pretty cool. This particular car also has the luxury package option, which replaces the really characterful tartan seats with these sort of faux leather and micro suede versions, which also have heating. I don't love the way these look. If it was me, I'd keep the tartan seats if at all possible. The comfort level and the driving position is actually very good though. In terms of practicality, if you go for the Sound and Vision package, you also get Qi wireless charging, but there's decent storage space throughout the cabin, 2 okay sized cup holders between the seats and big door bins, though sadly they don't get felt lining like almost every other product in the Volkswagen lineup. The most important thing for the backseat of any small car is that it's roomy enough to fit a pair of adults, and on that front, the Polo, including the GTI, is great. For me, at 6 foot, I've got heaps of headroom, lots of legroom, so there's no worries with room in the back of this thing. However, that's pretty much where the welcoming amenities stop, because the Polo GTI doesn't have air vents, no Polo does, and at $31,000, that is a little bit silly. And the entirety of the door surfacing remains completely hard in the GTI, plus no fold-down center armrest. So it's a little bit out of step with the rest of Volkswagen's range, which tends to be good at getting those little basic additions right. One of the best improvements in the Mark 6 Polo is that the boot space is substantially improved over the outgoing car. The new Polo is as big in the boot as a Golf was not long ago. there's 305 litres of space. As you can see, the boot floor is a really easy step from the car body itself, so you don't have to lift heavy suitcases down into the boot. Plus, you can fold those back seats completely flat. And it's typical German, this boot. There's a couple of hooks that you can hold delicate items on so that they don't roll around. And the whole boot itself is nice and light, so it's very easy to open and close. Of course, the most important question for any performance car, including the new Polo GTI, is what's it like to drive on a really good road? And the good news is that on first impressions, it feels really good. You can certainly sense the underlying character of the bigger Golf GTI, and in fact, this Polo GTI feels more like a Golf GTI than ever before. And I think the reason for that is kind of threefold. The first thing is that it's bigger, so you just feel like there's more car around you. This Polo is no longer a little car. In fact, dimensionally, it's as big as a Golf Mark IV was. The second thing is that the move to the EA888 2-litre engine, which is what is used in the Golf GTI and most of Volkswagen's performance cars, means there's just heaps more grunt. There used to be the 1.8-litre in the outgoing Mark V. Now this Mark VI uses the big 2-litre, producing 147 kilowatts of power and 320 newton meters of torque. And all of that torque is available from just 1500 RPM. So this is a grunty, muscly little performance car. In fact, it does its best work in the mid-range. All that torque comes on song at 1500 revs and lasts all the way till 4400 RPM, where peak power takes over. So there's basically strength everywhere, and the 0 to 100 claim of 6.7 seconds feels about right. Not lightning fast, it doesn't really pin you to the back of the seat, but it feels pretty quick. And thirdly, where the Polo GTI feels a bit more like a Golf GTI is in the way that it goes around corners. Now the Polo is on MQB from the 6th generation, so there's a lot of shared underpinnings. But like the Golf GTI, the Polo is a car that really rewards you by backing in sort of the rear end to a corner, trail braking, hooking in hard, and letting the car sort of balance itself and gradually bring the back around and a little bit of lift off oversteer. It's not really a car that you shove into a corner and get onto the gas as soon as possible, because the Polo GTI doesn't have a differential lock on the front end. And in fact, the base tyres are just Michelin Primacy 3s, which scrub and understeer quite badly. So the best thing you can do is drive this Polo GTI with a little bit more skill and athleticism, use the great back end to your advantage rather than just going as hard as you can with the front end. Now, if you get the bigger Brescia wheels, you upgrade to Bridgestone Turanza tyres, but it's not like a Pirelli P0 standard of grip on this car. You really have to kind of think before you corner hard. That's not to say the Polo GTI corners badly, it doesn't. It corners really well. It's got lovely, light, crisp steering. The overall balance is great. It's a little bit of body roll, but you can use it to your advantage. It just means that the Polo GTI, like the classic hot hatches of old, really rewards a driver that understands how front-wheel drive dynamics works. If you go for a little car like this or a Ford Fiesta ST, it rewards drivers who really get involved in how the balance shifts. Now, ride quality. The Polo GTI comes with a 2-mode Sport Select adaptive damping system, and it's okay, but the normal mode is already pretty firm, and if you step up into the sports mode, then it's actually quite choppy, so I'd recommend just leaving it in normal, leaving the steering in normal. And then we get onto the DSG. So it's not a bad gearbox. This 6-speed wet clutch DSG is the best of the dual clutch setups that Volkswagen offers. However, this kind of car is crying out for a 6-speed manual. The DSG offers really rapid-fire, snappy shifts, which is fantastic. However, a lot of the time you want to use this really nice linear EA888 motor with your own brain. And I think that the prospect of a 6-speed manual GTI coming to Australia in future is something that Volkswagen should really look into. In the meantime though, the DSG is more than good enough, and it will make the Polo GTI very accessible to a wide crowd. Standard safety inclusions are okay. You get low and high speed autonomous emergency braking with forward collision warning. You get tire pressure monitoring and driver fatigue detection. However, if you want things like adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, and blind spot monitoring, you'll need to option up the driver assistance package, which will drive the Polo GTI further into that mid $30,000 mark. So those are my first impressions of the new Volkswagen Polo GTI. I think that on balance, this car is pretty good value, providing 4/5 of the fun of a Golf GTI for as much as $15,000 less. That's quite compelling. That said, you do need a few key options to make the new Polo as good as it should be, like the bigger and better tyres. But once you've done that, this is an entertaining, classy, sporty little car that I didn't want to stop driving, and I think that says a lot.